I had no clue what to expect. I came into this class and was baffled by like the array and the amount of stuff in here. First of all, like it's a crowded room, you know, you walk in and you're like, wow, like I'm gonna be using all of these things.
I knew that we would make a book, but quite frankly, with this pack of amateurs, I wasn't sure that the professor would be able to whip us into shape to make anything decent even. But I'm awed by that ability and by our ability to improve, because this is pretty cool, I have to say.
It was hard to like have goals and form expectations at the beginning because it's so up in the air. So it was neat to kind of like learn how up in the air that was in kind of figuring out what we were doing with the class, and just having to going from discussing it slowly to suddenly having to make decisions quickly. I thought it was really realistic.
She had us set our names and our phone number and our addresses on the first day. And I don't know, I was just waiting to see what happened, and then we put them down on the press and we started printing pages, and I was like, I can do this. Like, this looks like a good time. And then came the realization that setting one line of type had taken me 15 minutes, and I was like, wait, we're writing an entire book. This is gonna be painful, but cool.
Prof. Marriott came in with the overall concept, and then we had at least 8 really long and kind of heated discussions about the subtopics that we wanted to explore within this. So we would write little rough drafts of kind of poetic interpretations of what we thought that the topic was about. And I think that was one of the most interesting parts because there was quite a bit of clashing. We all had really distinct perspectives on how we wanted to show this topic in book form. And I think that in the end, we came up with something that is really cohesive and perhaps a lot more cohesive than our initial conversations would have led me to believe the book would be.
I guess at first I thought that it would just be the same class again, but I've seen now that it's exactly the opposite from that, and that we come up with something like this, which is completely different from what we came up with last semester. I like this big format. I guess our last book was very big as well, but it was pretty thin, and this is pretty substantial. And I guess we did a lot of research at the beginning of the class, which was completely different from what we did last semester.
In the style of the 15th century. And he also, in the 15th century, believe it or not, they had this kind of binding the front cover is usually the first to fall off, the back cover, and the spine on many of these books has been replaced.
It was really cool just getting to bond with the books almost. You know, just, I mean, who has the opportunity to actually handle medieval books when they're not behind a, you know, a piece of glass or, you know, with gloves or something like that. Just actually being able to like handle and like touch history like that was really cool. And so I think that enthusiasm kind of got shifted over into our actual book, because just being able to just feel it and touch it and experience it was something really cool. So I definitely love that. Was probably one of my favorite parts of the class, was being able to hang out with the medieval books.
Unlike other institutions, not only in Southern California but throughout the world, we have these books for students to use. I mean, that is the only justification for our having these wonderful treasures. And I was so delighted to have the students here visit so often, to look at them and to study them and to really get a sense of what it was like to be in the 13th or the 14th or the 15th century. And that, I think, is part of the pleasure of having a Scripps class and being able to take advantage of the resources.
Yes. So everybody, let's see, what we're going to do is have a whole lot of words, and they will then be organized as we go. So in other words, some of the words that you find will be the physical characteristics. What I'd like you to think about first would be the major characteristics of the books that you've seen. What stands out in your mind as something that kind of says medieval?
And kind of going more into that, they became the objects of veneration. I don't know if any of you are familiar with how communion works in the Catholic Church, but there's a part in Mass where the physical bread and wine keeps its physical shape, but spiritually becomes the body and blood of Christ. So that's what these pictures would become. So instead of just being representations, they're actually becoming part of the ceremony. And then again, you've got really meta. This is actually a pontifical. You can tell because this is a bishop, so it's the pontifical inside the pontifical.
Yeah, and you can see like the red. There's red letters in the pontifical, so you can see the color indication, which is really interesting. So.
I really like your idea, Jeffrey, about the collective humanity, and that space shuttle chose these really oddly specific things to like send out into the world as a representation of humanity. And it's kind of funny that we have this random collection of like texts that are important to us as an assertion of what's important to humanity. And then so I was also like connecting that with the passing of time and how like these medieval books have survived all this time, but they're kind of random books that did survive. So it's interesting to think about, of the things that exist in the world right now, what is going to be the things that survive in 700 years? Like, is my journal going to survive? Is this book going to be around? Like, what about the dictionaries? It's like, what are we going to choose to save? What are we going to, like, you know, you're saying like your letters were saved by your mom. It's like, how, I don't know, just I was thinking about the passing of time and how it relates to like what we choose to save and why we choose to save it, and how in 1,000 years are our books and our texts that are around going to be a reflection of like humanity now and what's important to us as a culture.
And do you all agree that the books that we make now are a reflection of our current culture? I mean, in general, that's what all of our Scripps College Press books should be doing, and artist books in general should be asserting their presence in the present.
Right.
I'm wondering if we could think about the idea of commentary on each other's texts, because you know what's important to you, but you're presenting this text as being something important. We should hear from Caroline and from Leanne and whoever maybe about what that text means to you. So I'm thinking that possibly to get more communication with each other, that we might throw all of these texts into some kind of a place where that you could see them and then comment on the texts that you want to comment on. So, what do we do now? We have lots and lots of text. So let's have a discussion about what do we do now? What are our possibilities? You've written a lot. We've read a lot. And if we ignore copyright issues for a moment, let's see if we can come up with some ideas of how we can build this information that we've been gathering for the last several weeks into a book that we want to produce.
Collaboration, I don't think, is done enough in the classroom setting, outside of the press, or in different classrooms. Whereas here, the final product really does depend on how the group works as a whole.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think we
Well, but we're going for a modern book, right?
Yeah, but with
We could do
medieval.
it like randomly like that, but instead of like maybe writing out all of the connections, just maybe have like a little, I don't know, like a tab or something, and be like a color here and like a color on a different piece, and you'd be like, oh, they made a connection. What's that connection they made? I don't know.
Exactly,
something
or
like
if
that.
we did like little punch outs with colors, as
Yeah,
in
it
like
could be
the,
like
the
anything.
cover of the books had whatever those things were, the cover art.
My thing is, like, I'm not really opposed to a lot of the text, but I'm not like, yeah, you know, it's like, but I don't want to, like, if someone really wants to put it in, I don't want to, like, you know, be like, well, I don't think that the Bible's important enough, but, you know, like, I don't want to be
Yeah.
the
The
one
first,
who's
like, just the
that.
first time through the list, just if you're really excited about it, say yes, and if you're not, like, don't.
Well, there's a
revisit
difference
it.
between just being super excited about something and thinking that has a place
Well,
in
that's
the
what I mean.
Voyager
If you're excited
concept.
about, like, you know, it contributing to the book, not if you just love it.
Well, if our concept is just important text, we all say these are important to us, so I think everything has a place in the book.
Yeah.
I would agree with that.
Yeah, in that case, then everything.
Caroline?
If we're going by a theme or something like that, wouldn't it be better to choose what we're going to write about first and then choose the text that would support that?
Yes.
Like, I don't think we have enough information to choose the texts.
Well, let's just look at it this way. What are we going to do for next Monday? Next Monday, you're coming in with written texts because it's a second draft day. You have to write something for Monday. Write something. Yeah, we can't just talk in class and then have nothing to do between now and next Monday. Now, between now and next Monday, you're going to develop some text that will go in the book. Okay, so just like Monday, we're going to, everybody ready? So we're going to have the writer read the text out loud, not make any comments. We're going to make comments for him, and he's going to write everything down without judgment, and then evaluate what to do for the final draft for Monday. And that will become clear as we get through this discussion. John?
Okay.
You're relating it more to a human's perspective on it more than a sunflower. I think you tie both of the things in nicely. And I like the line "Unholy sunset veil of a dead flower" just because I think it's poetically, I like it a lot. The only thing is, I think that for me, at least, your poem is a little bit too close to what the actual poem is. I think it's useful to use words from the poem because you're making a direct connection, but at the same time, it's so much like the poem itself that I'm not sure how, like, I guess if we're going for something unexpected, I'm not sure how unexpected it is.
Take this text and really work it to see what, if you're, as you say, as Jeffrey says, if you're clearly getting the message across, which is the same thing I say to all of you. Look at your text to see if you understand your own message, and secondly, if you're clearly getting it across. Those are the two main points. But I had a point here halfway through even as much as I enjoy actually listening to this, where I lost it. And then you can't hear or think or smell or see because your everything is state of being, blah, blah, blah. That's when I lost interest, and then I regained it. But obviously you can't get to this that easily. You can't just wake up and so on. So, just like most texts, there's a flow where typographic presentation can really help you. There can be a big break. You're not going to ever probably see this big, fat, long text in our book in one big chunk, because we need to be able to divide it up and read it more carefully.
Yeah, so that's like a big part of it was just the way we arrived upon the main kind of gesture of the book was, I don't know, I guess we really did sort of stumble into it kind of, and it wasn't something that we just decided upon very easily. It was something that took a lot of collaboration and consideration, and little some punches thrown, but it was not too bad. Came to an agreement, I guess.
Why are we afraid to just pick one text? It's like, why?
I don't know that it's afraid. We're having this discussion.
Right, but it
that
seems
we
like
could pick one.
everyone's kind of like, oh, we can pick one, but this is more balanced. But if we're gonna pick like the most important thing, and everyone happened to like write about one text, like I think we should be strong and say this is what everybody wrote
I
about.
think that transforms the entire meaning of the project, though,
Yeah.
into something that we're not trying to
Why
do.
are we afraid of
Because
transformation?
why are we sticking to
I don't think
the
I'm
one?
afraid.
I just think I'm less interested in that project than I am in the one that combines several texts. I mean, that could be something that you guys agree with me with. I'm just saying that's the way I feel.
And we've had several votes, and we could put things on the table again, so that you guys can decide as a group. And again, when there's a difficult decision to be made, we try to thoroughly talk about it, convince each other of our viewpoints, and then we have to make a decision. Megan, you had something to say.
Yeah,
then
well, I
we'll
was just
do-
gonna say, kind of like in the same vein as Stephanie, I know one of the things that I loved about our project was the important texts, plural, and how we're all bringing together. I know logistically, we had to cut down some, and we couldn't put everything in just because that doesn't make sense just with production. But I don't know. I feel like if we want to change it to one text, I think that's fine. But then we're gonna have to redefine what our purpose of the book is.
Okay, any more discussion? So we have on the table multiple texts. We won't say how many or which ones, or one text. We're all agreed that that's on the table, and you have 2 votes, yes? Okay, so how many for multiple texts? 1, 2, 3. So that seems pretty obvious, how many for one text. Right. So it seems like all this goes away. Yeah.
Bye.
Okay?
And actually, at the beginning of the project, I did really like the idea of having multiple texts. And so at first, I was a little disappointed when I think we were all a little disappointed when we decided just to go with the one. But the more I've worked with this text, the more I've realized the value of really sinking into one text. And I do see, just in terms of the labor, how much effort we've put into just this book. And I really can't imagine what it would have been like to use, 5 to 7 important texts. So I have to say, I love the poem, and I'm sure I'm going to carry it with me for a long time now that I've spent this much time on it. So I'm happy with how it's gone.
I decided though that one text would be a good way of going about it, because if we're all going to come together in this cultural expression in this form of this book, and if we're going to do it together as a class, I thought that it should be something that we all worked on together and something that we all could come together around and agree on. So the idea of commenting on one text reflected more of the overall idea of making a book as a class project for me.
So
the first 5 or 6 classes were us just sitting around and talking, and it was a little frustrating at first because it was like, okay, what are we gonna do? Like, we all had these different ideas, and it was really difficult to find like a common thread. And honestly, right now, I think the only common thread we have is that it's big data and that it's about visualization of big data. But yeah, because at first you're like learning to walk almost. Is that it's like you're trying to figure out how to put one foot in front of the other without falling over. And I don't think we expected to have to relearn that. You know, it was difficult. And I know that there were a lot of people, myself included, who didn't realize the extent of how much we were going to be working with one another. And it's turned out to be a wonderful thing. Like, I've bonded so much with everyone in this class. But yeah, it's just something, I don't know, that makes this class really special.
Well, I guess we had kind of a starting point, and that was big data. And after that, we all kind of separated and were like, what is the data you're interested in? And I was interested in, what was I interested in? And initially I wanted to do like dream cycles and weird, like graphing like the types of subjects that different people were like dreaming about and stuff. And then I steered more towards like how we spend our days and like more like number-driven data instead of like categorical data. And I think everyone in their own way like either made the decision to choose between categorical, quantitative, and then after that, what are you interested in? Are you interested in medical, like Etta was? Are you interested in doing something more personal, like Meredith's like concern for like bee colony collapse disorder?
Yeah, I think the collaborative process in this class is also not necessarily consistent, but in a good way. So between different semesters, the collaboration itself, the way that the class collaborates, is up to that specific group. So we decided to do our own little sections because we realized that our ideas had a similar thread, but that they weren't going to create necessarily one storyline. So I think the fact that we got to choose our own method also has a lot to do with why this collaboration is unique.
I guess the way that we're learning about it is almost like a case study. We're not like studying it from a textbook. It's not like this is big data, this is how you mine it. We all came in with our own interpretations of big data, and from that we're looking at our own specific case. Like for me, it's how we're spending each of our days and how did that data get gathered. I needed to learn that by myself so then I could like accurately reflect that in my book. And I guess it's more of like everything is in this class, just learn it by yourself by like figuring it out and like working through it instead of being told the information and then like going about it that way.
It's also like a lot of it is exploring the topics that my peers have chosen too, you know, where it's like I wouldn't have chosen big data in terms of medical or like psychological or anything like that. So it's interesting to see what they're doing as well and hearing about their perspective on it, which is something you wouldn't get in another class because you're kind of, that's a little more prescriptive of saying this is what big data is, but here you kind of bring your own perspective into it and it's welcomed.
I picture myself as like a 50-year-old woman taking this book off my shelf, and I think that I'll remember that big data was something that was a hot topic in the news. But not just a hot topic in the news, it was something that really says a lot more about where our society is right now, what American norms are, and how we think about things, and how we visualize data, and what kind of data is important to us. And in 50 years and 500 years, it'll be really interesting to see if that's still important.
So the students brought in lots of different kinds of imagery inspired by the important texts that they had brought in and written about over the time of these 5 weeks that we've been together. And I just wanted to show some of the books that we had been looking at. We went to the Imagining the Past in France at the Getty Museum and saw that show, and went to the Conservation Lab with Nancy Turner and looked at a lot of interesting things and microscopes and pigments and gold. And we have illuminated manuscripts by Christopher DeHamel, which was one of our seminal texts that the students had to read quite a bit of. Oh my goodness, we have so many books that we've been looking at. Life in a Medieval Village, and just piles of Xeroxes that the students have been reading excerpts from these books. So we tried to see if we could make some sense of all of this imagery. We've also looked at a number of different Scripps College Press books to see what we can actually do also.
We looked at kind of the structure of medieval imagery. So this was a PowerPoint that I had given last week, and I just reiterated with the students again today about how the structure of a lot of these medieval pictures had a lot of diagonals on them, or sort of unusual geometric shapes. And so here would be your square made sort of into a diamond shape, very strong patterning also. Or inside an historiated initial may be divided in half, for example, but the circle inside the square.
Proposal 1, it's sort of a delta shape, the Greek symbol delta, which is change, which I thought was sort of interesting with respect to the manuscripts in medieval times. And I like how it's sort of almost like a typographic letter form. I really like the typographic forms, and I sort of wanted to, maybe experiment with that somewhat on this page. I only have, 3 or 4 sentences of text, so I think I would either have to do it, I was thinking of doing it maybe up like that, and then the rooming can go here, or something like that. So it's very much in flux, but I like this.
Yeah.
This is a very straightforward medieval-based style, but I thought it'd be kind of interesting to, instead of having a historiated initial, have the Rumi text as the historiated initial. But I think I'd have to change the proportions a little bit because this would be a very small font.
I went with the window theme, and so what I did is I cut out like a bird cage, and then so they keep getting smaller, and then on the last page, and you can see a bird in it, and on the last page, there's no cage. The bird is free.
Whoa, wait, can you do it again?
But can we see it? Yeah.
That's so
Yeah.
cool.
So this keeps getting smaller, and then there's a bird.
I feel like the margin is really
Changing
messing
it.
up my continuum.
You kind of have to think more in advance about what you want to produce, and you have to really be sure, because as soon as you start producing it, it's not easy to go back and change.
Maybe this breaking it up. Yeah, switch those.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
I don't know, this sort of goes from complicated to simple.
I think it's more rewarding when you've spent all of these hours and watching it all come together. The process is rewarding, but also it makes the end result, holding that book in your hands. And, to other people who see it, they won't know just how much work went into it, but, we know it. So, yeah, it's a point of pride, I think. Working with such big presses and then doing a lot of hand delicate work, you find that it just shows the variety of range of what it takes to make a book. And it's humbling in some sense, using these giant roller things, but then also going down to this tiny small scale with just a needle and thread. It just puts in all this potential energy into this book of it's big and small, and it's all-encompassing, kind of.
I was glad to take it again and have a chance to sew a book, because it is a very different experience, and you get something entirely new from every class. And so I love the book that we made last time, and I'm sure I haven't had a huge chance to look at all of the aspects of this one, and I'll be excited to see it when the covers and everything have been connected. And so seeing these very different things and having these experiences is a great way to see sort of all of the techniques out there, since it's impossible to use every technique in one class.
So we're going to get her up there.
Right now I am making proofs and fixing letters that are showing up light or broken. So I have to loosen all of the spacing on the press so that I can use a pair of pliers to pick out a little T that's not working very well and replace it. Right here you can see that the T didn't show up completely. The horizontal stroke on the top is not very clear, so I'm going to work to replace that letter.
This is 7 different fixes. We've gotten here, and we've done all the fixes. Those two.
I like the sounds of typesetting, the little clinking. And I also, I don't know, I guess it just gives you a visual of the process. And I also feel like typesetting makes every letter really important, obviously, because it just like makes you think over the words that you wrote for the book again and again.
18 and I want something to give me a nice number in the middle, but maybe I'll have to. In other words, we're going to have 3 different pieces. This piece, this piece, and this piece.
Okay.
Is that right? There's a twosie, and that. Twosie, and that.
Perfect.
Okay.
Yes, there we go. Yeah, that's the magic.
There it goes. Okay, so you see these little marks down here? Yeah, that's a very good example.
Could be done at 12:30.
Oh, okay.
Huh? Thank you, Lord.
I scheduled this in high school too. I went to Ingram High School. My sisters went to SAS.
See why it's...
Yeah, my little brother goes to Garfield. Oh, cool, yeah.
14 point in there. Oh, this is... Here's the layout. So this one goes inside like that. So what they're trying to do, since these are 2 different pieces of paper, is to get the color to match on 2 different presses. Right, I'm just pulling that out. So now, I'm going to hand type it while you... Every time you have a new color now, we have another press run. So this one would require this press run, and this press run, and this. And then if this were a different color, that would be 4 press runs. If there were 2 different pieces of paper, that'd be 4 here and 2 more over here. That's 6 press runs. Those of you that had 3 colors, that's another press run. Every color is a new press run. Now, we did talk about doing some handwork on here, but I just want to have you think carefully about how many press runs you want this little piece of paper to go through the press, because you are sharing. Remember our village concept, our scriptorium concept? Now you are sharing and you have to help each other. So here is our board. So this is 3/4 of an inch all the way around. Okay? So I made plenty of them. Here's our linoleum. You have to make sure that you never ever put anything on top of linoleum. I shouldn't have even done that, because if it scratches it, then it shows. And looks like we've got some pure color blocks that we don't want to have little scratches in. Okay? Because that's just right there. And I don't see it. Maybe it's there, but I don't know. See, can you see it's not aligned there, so I can't quite find it. But we'll just get a little bit more pressure on that part. We may put the Scotch tape on that side. We'll see. Okay, that's it. Any more proofs? Okay. So, boy,
Yeah, I know.
that's really interesting that that's so much darker than that. I don't mind the fact that that might eventually be darker.
Yeah, that's fine.
We got to be able to put more pressure in that area.
So
So for my spread, just here, I used geometric designs, mostly triangles for my shape, but I had a lot more intense and complicated design at the bottom with all the different little triangles put together. So it took me a lot longer to cut out in linoleum all the different little triangles and like glue them on and make sure that there was spacing and enough stuff going on. So it was definitely a lot of work, but I'm really happy with how it turned out. And so it definitely takes a little bit of extra effort to get your vision onto the page, but it's really cool when you actually take the time to do it. So.
And was it fun to print?
Yes, I love printing. I mean, there's something really cool about just seeing this like blank page, then putting it through, and then just seeing the end result of all the hard work that you put into those little triangles, you know, just coming out onto the final printed page. So.
But honestly, I feel like if maybe I added 1 or 2 more pieces of tape to these corners, we would be there. Because look, you can actually see the line now.
Oh, yeah.
And that actually looks
okay.
nice.
Yeah.
So do you think I should just add a little more tape?
Yeah.
And
Go
then
for it.
what?
Yeah.
I think that one is.
Yeah. Good girl.
Thank you. Thank you.
You're welcome. Yeah, that's really wonderful.
Yeah. It is. Okay. Coming into the class, I actually did not know what it really was going to be about. Initially, I took it for my fine arts requirement, and I love books, and so the title sort of intrigued me. But I thought it was going to be a lot more of a sort of a technical study about maybe even like fonts and the typography, and I didn't know it would be so much of handwork, which that blew me away, and I was really excited about that part. It's definitely been a lot more challenging than I expected. I'm learning a lot of skills that I have never even touched before, so that's been really interesting. But for me, I think it's just been a really special experience actually, because I've always loved books, and seeing the process behind creating one and actually making one with my own hands it's been really special, and I really hope that I can continue to do it. So I've loved everything that I've learned.
And then using the bone folder, I can make 2 marks on the page to kind of crease where this fold's going to be. And then fold it a little bit. And I'm going to do just sort of light folds in all the places where it needs to be folded, and then fold it all together. So this one's been one of the hardest since it's so far away, so I have to make sure that it's in the corner and then straight against the bottom when I line up the ruler and wait for this part.
Wait, how many books do we have to sew each?
And now we have
12. Oh my god.
My page folded in this sort of accordion way to give this triangle structure. And this flap in the back will go over the back of the page to connect it to the book.
Yeah,
here's the book. And this is my section here, which has kind of this information as well as information hidden under the flap. And then this is the graph with the drawings done
early
inside
and
the
then
book.
like working for like 3 hours or something and then going to Kahoot.
But yeah, I did definitely used to think that I was really detail oriented and really like a perfectionist, and then I found out that there are levels of detail orientedness that I had never even thought of before, but it's been fun.
Yeah, Lily's got 4. Jane's on her 4. Lily's on her 4.
Oh, I'm so excited about it. I mean, I can already see it coming together. We're sewing our books together, putting everyone's section in like a specific order. It feels more cohesive than I guess it did at the beginning. Because when we first started, everyone had their separate sections. It was really like, it felt like separate projects, and now it feels like it's all coming together, and it's like really exciting actually. So.
Okay. So that's almost ready to print. I wanted to share with you yet one more article on big data. This was in today's New York Times, and it starts out, "Big data is suddenly everywhere." So I just wanted to make sure that you realize that you were right in the middle of your times, which is the way our book should be. And so here are our choices for the binding cloth. So I went through all of the cloth that's available here in Santa Monica and in New York in quantity enough for us to do one side of this. With this kind of binding, we do the cloth on the inside because it equalizes the cover. Since we only have a couple minutes left, do you want to pull out the ones that you like and put them in my hand? Just give them to me. Anybody that doesn't pull out a color, right? Give me.
The one I
okay.
wanted.
All right.
Just don't pull out anything.
Wait, no, I like this one though. I have to. Well, okay, no, actually, no, I like that one more than that one though. So I'm fine with that.
Here's more.
Okay.
Oh, that's so
Oh my god.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Okay. Are you ready to vote? Any more discussion?
Can we vote twice?
Can you vote 3 times?
No, just vote. We should do just twice.
Vote
yeah.
twice. Everybody ready to vote? Okay. How many for this one? Chris, take a count. Okay. How many for the green? 1, 2, 3. And how many for the blue? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So this seems like that's the color?
I think the most important thing I'll take away from this experience is how to actually learn the trade of bookmaking, and not just learn the trade of bookmaking, but how to learn it, which is why the collaboration is so important, the equipment is so important. It's a really detailed process.
Yep. A lot of them are good for me, so that'll work.
So watch as I demonstrate. It's really kind of unusual to do this with paper, but it's really easier than book cloth. So I'm pulling over the book cloth. So this is all glued. I'm going to pull over the book cloth. We're going to use this case folder and rub it up against there. So this has got a bevel on it, so it gets that nice. Okay, and then like that. Okay, so that really wraps it. And then wipe that off on your apron immediately, because if you have too much glue on this, it'll go squirt, it'll squirt all over the place. What do I have to do with that? I can't push straight down. I have to pull it towards my body while I'm pushing down also. So I try to do it like this with my middle finger, pull, kind of maybe like that, so that I'm trying to get a slightly new angle. That wasn't really very good, but it's better than this one.
The main thing that I've taken away from this class is that no art is too small. Yeah. Learning how to do it and the process of it really makes you respect smaller arts that aren't necessarily appreciated from day to day.
Okay. So who's still having a little difficulty?
I think I was surprised by my own patience. I think I didn't realize how patient I can be as a person, because you are, making mistakes. Things take so much longer than you ever expected them to, because it's important that it is as near to perfect as possible, and can be kind of a frustrating process.
You're good. How are you doing?
I don't know.
Wait, stop. So, this is a nice delicate little thing. So I can get just a little tiny weensy bit, and maybe that's still too much, and maybe get a little bit right there, and then wipe it off a little bit with your finger, and then push it down. Don't push down too hard, because there's glue there. Push down again. Wait a minute. Push down again, and now go ahead and push it. Yeah. So now, looking at it from this direction, right, it's stuck down. This one looks like it wants to come up, though, okay? But otherwise, it looks good. You got no glue there? Bravo.
Can I move on?
Yes.
Yay, thank you.
And now, I just kind of feel with my finger, but I got a little glue on here, so wipe your finger, knock it up at the spine, knock it up at the head. Now, as you knock it up, you might get a little bit of glue from that edge on here. So I wipe my hand to make sure that when I put it down, it's okay. Now I'm looking at it to see if it's aligned with the spine and aligned with the head. Sometimes I've decided that maybe I would shove it up just a hair. It's pretty well flush with both sides. I'm holding my hand here. Now I'm immediately flipping over the whole thing, flip this out of the way and hold that down. See how many pieces of board there? So, in the instructions now, you hold this down for 60 seconds. 1,000, 2,000, 3,000, 4.
So bizarre. Oh my god, I can't believe this looks so good. I mean, this is the first time I'm seeing our book of seconds bound for the first time, and I see the new cover. It's all nice and covered with the cloth over the wood, and then we've got our stitching on the side. Yeah, but wow, this is going to be awesome. This is going to turn out really, really nicely.
It's kind of shocking. It's unbelievable. It's been such a long journey.
It's difficult to get into that mindset of who I was before the class because I really didn't know anything.
It's a nice feeling of, look, I made this. This is what I did here. Definitely, having your name on something that the Scripps College Press printed. It's a pretty cool feeling, to be real.
So the reason I wanted you to look at these books was so that you realize that when other people look at these books who have made books, they understand them a lot better than somebody like at the beginning of the semester. Remember when you looked at these books at the beginning of the semester? And say, oh, these are pretty, these are interesting, but you don't really appreciate it until you look at how they made the imagery, what they wrote, and all of that sort of thing.
This class always has the interesting thing where you come in and you're given some broad idea that Prof. Marriott chooses, and then seeing how that evolves through the course of the class, where you don't know exactly how the book is going to look, but you're working on it and you're making choices. And even if you don't agree with every choice, when you get to the end and you have the book that you've created in your hands, it's a really incredible thing to see and think about how you and this class made that. And you forget all of those little arguments you had in the class about different aspects of it, because of what you've made is really incredible despite kind of the challenges of setting up the press and printing and all of that work that goes into it. At the end you have something just very solid that you can look at, and that sense of accomplishment that you can't quite imagine from that first day.
We haven't got everybody, but we have almost everybody.